What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. My name is Owe. I got my co-host Dustin with me today. We're going to be giving our spoiler review of the new fantasy action comedy adventure flick starring Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez. It's called Dungeons and Dragons. This is the first Dungeons and Dragons since the year 2000. I don't know, Dustin, if you're aware, there was a Dungeons and Dragons movie back in the year 2000 starring Jeremy Irons and the great actor Marlon Wayans. He was in that movie too. Very forgettable, very stupid, and it had some of the worst CGI known to man. That's really all I remember from the 2000s Dungeons and Dragons, which I'll say this: this Dungeons and Dragons with Chris Pine is leagues better than that version. But with that said, I was disappointed with this film. I'll say that right off the back. I actually was expecting Dungeons and Dragons to be more of a sleeper this year, to be the, kind of fly under the radar and exceed all expectations. So maybe I held this movie in high regard because I was expecting more of like a Guardians of the Galaxy mixed with like medieval fantasy. And it was sort of like that. But honestly, I felt a little bored. I'll say that. I honestly fell asleep during the middle portion of this movie. I was catching some Z's during this movie, but that's how I felt about it. But Dustin, what was your overall thoughts on Dungeons and Dragons before we dissect this thing?
Yeah, I was hoping this is going to be the Bullet Train 2023. I'm still looking for. I'm still waiting for the Bullet Train of 2023. Still not happening. Still not finding it. A lot of hype with this movie. A lot of good reviews and everything. So yeah, I came in there thinking this was going to be great. It was okay. It wasn't like it wasn't. It wasn't. I was expecting a great like Disneyland ride somewhat. You're going in there and just having a great time. Not really. Not so much. There's a lot of things that we can talk about.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I was expecting to have more fun, even if it was going to be stupid fun. I was expecting more fun, and like I said, I fell asleep during portions of this movie. But I'll say this: Chris Pine, he's the lead. He plays Ed. What's his name? Edgin.
Edgin
Edgin.
or Edkin, one of those
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. He's sort of the thief bard type of character. Which I mean, this is a Dungeons and Dragons movie. Which
Mm.
Dungeons and Dragons, I've never played it. I mostly know about it because of Stranger Things, right? Stranger Things kind of
Yep.
brought the popularity of Dungeons and Dragons back into the mainstream, even though there's still a lot of good. I mean, there's a good portion of people who still dabble in that game. I find it interesting, but it's not for me. Unless, of course, Eddie Munson is the dungeon master. Then maybe I'll consider playing Dungeons and Dragons. But other than that, so I'm sure there's little subtle nuances throughout this movie that players will understand. But for me, as a normie mainstream audience trying to watch a fantasy movie, I mean, I wasn't expecting Lord
Yeah.
of the Rings, but I was expecting more of a interesting world with interesting characters. And I
Yeah.
thought Chris Pine did a decent job in being the lead, but I don't think it was enough because I found the other characters around him to fall a little flat. So I'll say that.
I agree with you on that one. I was thinking about that. As far as the characters, you said they were flat. I thought there was little chemistry between those guys. There's a lot of charisma coming out of Chris Pine. Michelle Rodriguez, again, just the tough girl. Pretty much every movie she plays. I felt Hugh Grant, he was supposed to be the con man, but I didn't think he sold it that well. The other two characters I thought were cool. The Simon character and the shape shifting woman.
She was probably my favorite
She
character
was,
out of
yeah.
all of them. Every time she was on screen and had to show her powers, she had some pretty creative scenes. But yeah, let's dial it back to Hugh Grant. You nailed it
Yeah.
right there. Him being the main antagonist, kind of the sleazeball con man, which I felt a lot of his humor and jokes felt forced in this movie. The whole tea thing when they're talking, the tea's too hot, the tea's too hot. I'm
Yeah.
like, this feels kind of forced, and then and
He
all that.
doesn't he doesn't play it that well. I look at Hugh Grant and I can't see that sleazeball con man type of guy. I've seen a lot of Hugh Grant films and he's just I'm a big Hugh Grant fan, but he doesn't play this character very well.
See, I'm the opposite. I think he's the perfect role for like a sleazeball type of character. Maybe it's the age he's getting to now that just makes him perfect for that type of role. But for the main villain, I mean, he was the main villain for the main portion of the movie. I mean, there's like a side villain that doesn't come into prominence until the very end, the Red Witch lady,
Mhm.
who had some interesting scenes. You could tell the movie was building up a bigger baddie for future installments with the ghost skull person she was talking to, which I really had no interest. I was like, they could have done a way better job in building up this evil force that's kind of lurking in the
But
background.
we don't know how big he is because we're not Dungeons and Dragons guys. So that this guy could be, if Dungeons and Dragons is its own world, so this guy could be big time in the D&D world.
Well, the thing about Dungeons and Dragons, which also is what I had a big problem with the movie, is that Dungeons and Dragons people and the players and the dungeon masters kind of create the world as they go. Like a lot of these people spend a lot of time writing their own stories. That's why the way this movie's kind of set up is it's kind of all exposition. It's like we're with these characters, they got to go here. They talk to this person and then they give a whole spiel and exposition about how this area works and the little history and what they need to get. And then they move on to the next place and it's more exposition. So that's kind of the world that we're thrown into, which made it not that interesting for me. Like the locations, what I respect about the movie is it looks like they're filming in a lot of real
Yep.
locations.
It was Ireland, Northern Ireland. It was
Yeah,
beautiful.
okay, so that makes sense. There's a lot of beautiful scenery, beautiful backdrop, but the world itself, they're kind of just speeding around the place, going from place to place. That I didn't think the world building was that good. Like I wanted to know a little bit about this world and like factions around it, but they're kind of just speeding the story up to to get to the main points. Which this really wasn't a world that I'd like to revisit, honestly.
If they actually explained all the world, we'd be there for almost 6 hours. It probably would have been like an actual D&D game because D&D
True.
games, can play for like what, almost 2 days. Pretty
Yeah.
much if you go in depth.
And more than that, some campaigns take like a month or something.
Yeah. So I can definitely understand the time length and everything, but we were already sitting in our chairs for what, 2 hours and 30 minutes for this movie.
A little too
Um,
long. I'll say
Still too
it
long.
maybe if they trimmed off maybe 15, 20 minutes of the movie, I felt that was too long, honestly.
Yeah, about 15, 20 minutes too long on that one. Like you said, I think you said you fell asleep in the middle or the beginning of the movie, and then towards the middle of the movie. I liked it during the paint. I guess the teleportation time.
It's like the hither tither magic mirror
Mirror,
staff.
yeah, the
Yeah.
teleportation stuff, and then that's when they start getting into the actual heist of this castle called Nevermore,
Nevermore. Yeah,
Nevermore, or
the town is
whatever.
called Nevermore and it's run by Hugh Grant after he betrays them in the beginning. But yeah, like the big action scene in the middle, we're in the dungeon with the paladin guy,
Mhm.
who the paladin guy, thank God that guy didn't stick around. I found that character, he was a little funny. He was kind of like the opposite of like Drax. Like he was that stern, stoic character where jokes kind of went over his head, but he was more elegant
Oh,
with the way he spoke and he was a knight and everything. But I was like, please, I don't want to I don't want this character to hang out with these main
what
group
was
of
his?
people the
I'm
whole
trying to find
time.
his name
His
again.
name was Zank. It was Zank, and he was the paladin type of character. But yeah, he was probably my least favorite character in all this. So thank God he didn't stick around. But that main action scene where the underground dungeon with the fat ass dragon,
Mm,
I honestly started to doze off a little bit in that scene because the CGI wasn't that good.
yeah.
That's the portion of the movie where I was like, okay, this is the big action set piece where they're all in front of a green screen. I honestly started to doze off a little bit during that scene. It wasn't until the heist, when they actually started going into the heist, is where I started getting more interested with the movie again.
Yeah, I mean the heist thing was where it kicked up a notch, but I mean before all that the whole movie was about explaining the wife, explaining the characters, and then they get together again trying to find a helmet, which I dozed off because how did they get that helmet from the dragon? I kind of
I
dozed off
don't
a little
know.
bit
I
too.
was hoping you would remember because I
I don't
dozed
remember
off.
whatsoever. But they're trying to find the helmet of something,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to be magical powers, which I don't even think it played very well towards the end either, right? He just used the helmet one
I
time.
Yeah, there was a lot of like just them traveling from place to place, needing certain things to get Chris Pine's daughter back. Because
Mhm.
what I did like about the story is that it wasn't like, okay, we got to stop this whole evil from taking over the world. It was like way more of a personal story. It was pretty much Chris Pine wants to get his daughter back, and it had a
Yeah,
good
but you
like
couldn't you
family
couldn't really
element
connect
to
to
it.
it. You couldn't really connect to it because there was such little chemistry, I thought, between all the characters. So
Yes,
the daughter
yes.
wasn't even like I forgot about the daughter when Chris Pine went back into the castle and the daughter, he was like, Dad, what are you doing back here? And he was like, Oh my God, I came here to save you. And as the audience member, I was like, Holy shit, there's a daughter. I forgot about the daughter. I forgot that that was the whole goal, was to find the daughter.
The wizard guy, he had some interesting moments. He even has a full character arc that worked for him. But other than that, like them working together as a team and as a family
Yeah.
unit, I wasn't really feeling it. I didn't feel
Yeah.
the chemistry that much, even between Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez. They're supposed to be like, brother and sister relationship ever since Chris Pine's wife dies.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't really feeling it. That's why when he saves her at the end with the stupid tablet, the
Yeah.
resurrection tablet,
Tablet
I
of
was like,
Resurrection.
and she's like, "Oh, you used it on me because they could only save one person
Yeah.
once, and then you can never use it again." And when she's like, "Oh, you saved it on me, I can't believe it," and I was like, "Yeah, why'd you save it on her?" I was like,
Yeah.
"We could have let her die. If there's
The
gonna be a
whole
sequel, we didn't need her." Even though
yeah.
I will say some of the best parts or fight scenes were with Michelle Rodriguez's character. They had some good action choreography.
Okay.
Oh, we got him now! You know what? I'm thinking there are probably sharper stairs somewhere else.
I'll tell you what, the only thing that was great about Holga was my favorite part of the movie was Mr. Bradley Cooper's cameo. He came in as I think his name is Mortimer or something like that,
Yeah, he's a
which is
little like
they're like
Hobbit
a
character.
horror Hobbit character. Yeah, that bumps it up for me. I actually woke up for that scene. I was like, oh my God, it's Bradley Cooper. So that was my favorite part about Holga, Michelle Rodriguez's part. But other than that, other than that little stint of a firework, it was kind of flat, kind of it wasn't even whimsical. It wasn't even eye candy. None of it was.
Well, there was
The
one
CGI
scene we
was
skipped
okay.
out on. There was
Well,
one like, yeah, the eye candy, like in the CGI in this movie not good at all. There was the CGI was not that good. Although I did find some action scenes, especially with the shapeshifter girl. You went to the bathroom during this scene,
mhm,
but there's a really good scene where she's kind of doing a reconnaissance in the castle, and she's
mhm.
being chased and turning into different animals and insects and everything. You missed out on that scene. That was probably like my second favorite scene of the movie, but my favorite scene of the movie, which actually I laughed at a lot, which I thought most of the comedy in this movie fell flat for me,
Mhm.
unfortunately. But one scene that I really enjoyed was the graveyard scene. I love that
Did you
graveyard
like that
scene.
scene? I thought
I
that was
did. I
stupid.
found it really interesting and creative, and it was funny because they had to interrogate all these dead bodies on this battlefield, but they only had a limited number of questions.
Yeah.
I thought the very beginning of that scene where Chris Pine is confused and he keeps asking questions and they're not getting the answers they needed. I found it to be a charming and comedic scene. So I like that graveyard scene.
I'll give the graveyard scene at least creative because the whole scene was playing out as a flashback towards this one battle. Because remember, they're still trying to find that helmet, and they went from dead body to dead body, asking 5 questions only, and because they all had their own little what's that called? Their own little story that surrounded the helmet. You would go to their body, they'd ask them 5 questions, they'll tell their story, and then on to the next guy with his story about where the helmet is. It was a creative way to have a visual flashback. I'll give it that.
Well, I had fun with that scene. I had fun with that scene, which is unfortunate to say I didn't have that much fun throughout the whole movie. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was the lack of chemistry between the characters and the lack of interest in this world that they were building because it was just they were just going through all these different parts so fast. And you said that graveyard scene was a flashback. Like half this movie was a flashback because we'd go to a
It was.
character, they'd explain something or give some line of exposition, and we get a little flashback, and then we move on to what they really need to do. That's what I felt like the whole movie was. That's why I started to become uninterested and started dozing off until the end, where we did get some interesting scenes, like when they're trying to do the hither tither mirror device on the moving
Mhm,
carriage. That was pretty cool and creative. And then the maze scene when they're all
mhm,
together and they're trying to navigate this moving maze with
mhm,
other D&D characters that are stuck in it. I thought that was pretty cool.
mhm.
And then you had like the ending scene where the true villain is revealed at the very end, which I
The
really
Red
didn't give a
Wizard.
shit.
Yeah.
The Red Wizard, I really didn't give a shit when she came out to be the main villain. Um,
So if this was a D&D campaign, basically it was guy loses wife, Guy forms team. Team tries to find the helmet. They find the helmet. Now they have to go stop the one team member that betrayed him. The team member that betrayed him had a red wizard sorcerer, very strong. They save the daughter, go back and go after the red wizard, get revenge on their sorcerer slash con man. End of campaign.
Save the day.
Save the day. That's it.
They saved the day. Yeah.
There's your campaign. There's your D&D campaign.
Yeah, there's your D&D campaign, which, yeah, the whole reasoning for them like banding together and like, okay, we got to save the town. I was like, okay, I'm really not feeling it with this group of characters. Like, I guess Chris Pine's character had like an oath. He was like a Robin Hood type character before.
And yeah, he was a spy or something. There was so many side plots, side character histories about everything, which again, it could play into how D&D is played. So, I mean, if you're a D&D player, old school or new school, you probably could get and understand this movie a lot more. And, it probably pays homage to the whole, your actual game. But there was just so many side everything.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting like a serious fantasy epic like the new Lord of the Rings. I knew this movie was going to be taken that seriously, but I was expecting to be more interested in the characters and the world that they were building. So I'd be, interested in returning to this world, which, I mean, if there's a sequel, I can't see my interest bumping up because I really didn't care about most of the characters in this movie. And I was bored. I was bored, even though there were some creative action scenes. The way it was pieced together, I was uninterested for most of the movie. I'll say that. So sadly, I was disappointed. So,
yeah.
All right. Are we ready to give our rating, or do you want anything else? You're going to go for it? I'll go first. Out of 10. Oh man, I wish I could give it a higher rating, but I'm going to give it a 6.4 out of 10.
Okay. I do like the battles, especially the mirror scene and all that stuff, and the battles at the end with the Red Wizard. I thought that was pretty cool. I'll be a little bit nicer. I'm gonna go 7.1, and that 0.1 comes from the Mr. Bradley Cooper cameo.
Wow, Bradley Cooper was enough to get you to the 7s, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that was a little bright spark. I don't think there's anybody other cameos. I mean, not to see Bradley Cooper in that.
Yeah, he was the little hobbit dude. That's about it. But I wish I could even go high 6 or reach the 7s with my score, but not a lot of things can make me fall asleep. And unfortunately, I was snoozing off during the middle of this movie, so that's where I was. So
I mean, it was a fun ride. If we had to compare it to Disneyland, it wasn't Splash Mountain. It's more like Small World after all.
It might have been the teacup ride for me.
Could have been a teacup. Yeah, it could have been. Ride. But it definitely wasn't like Splash Mountain or what is that, Thunder Railroad or something like that.
Space Mountain, whatever.
Space Mountain, it wasn't definitely any of those things.
Yeah.
It was more on the kiddie side of the rides.
It definitely was more of a kiddie side. Like if you got a kids or young children, definitely take them to this movie. If you don't, wait till it's on your streaming service. That's what I'll say. So, All right, everyone. That's our spoiler review of Dungeons and Dragons. Post down in the comment section below what you thought of the movie. What would you rate Dungeons and Dragons? Let us know. And if you like this video, make sure you smash that like button. If you like what we do, subscribe to this channel to see more from us, and we will see you next time. See ya.